Good morning. I would like to welcome you here today to this historic event, the signing of the Charter on a distinctive relationship between NATO and Ukraine. May I first give the floor to President Aznar, the President of the host country. Maria.
Señores jefes de Estado y de Gobierno, secretario general, para un aliado como España es un honor recibirles a todos en este acto. Para el presidente del Gobierno español es, además, un privilegio. La firma de la Carta para una asociación específica entre la OTAN y Ucrania es para mí la prueba palpable y efectiva del relieve que otorgamos en la Alianza Atlántica a la independencia y a la integridad territorial y a la soberanía de Ucrania como factores claves para la estabilidad europea. La importancia de un país como Ucrania en su incorporación a la comunidad euroatlántica constituye un acontecimiento señalado para la historia de nuestros pueblos. Y el propio contenido de la Carta que vamos a firmar también debe alegrarnos. Por un lado, dicha Carta reconoce una realidad estratégica indudable, como es el papel que Ucrania tiene que desempeñar en la seguridad europea. Por otro, demuestra la capacidad de la Alianza para responder a los retos que nos plantea este fin de siglo y, en particular, a la creación de un sistema de seguridad europeo indivisible, transparente, que evite nuevas líneas divisorias en Europa y zonas grises de seguridad. Las relaciones entre la Alianza y Ucrania tienen entidad en sí misma y responden a una realidad histórica concreta. Los esfuerzos de Ucrania para consolidar su reciente independencia por la vía democrática y el impulso decidido que ha dado a las relaciones de buena vecindad no han hecho sino reafirmar su papel en Europa y en el mundo. Los recientes acuerdos concluidos por Ucrania con la Federación Rusa y con Rumanía son buena prueba del compromiso ucraniano con la paz y la estabilidad en Europa, así como la ratificación.
So too does the ratification of the Flanks Agreement within the framework of the Conventional Armed Forces in Europe Treaty. The NATO-Ukraine Charter seeks to support these efforts and to contribute to the strengthening of our shared security, institutionalizing a specific partnership which will serve as a framework to develop relations between Ukraine and the Atlantic Alliance in the future. The flexible nature of the Charter is clearly one of the most positive aspects of this important document and will contribute to the consolidation of its contents, broadening it when necessary and adapting it to future needs and to the new security environment. Before closing, allow me to address some special words to President Kuchma. Mr. President, I should like to take this opportunity to congratulate you personally. The signing today of the NATO-Ukraine Charter would not have been possible without the political, economic, and social transformations which have taken place in your country, thanks to your decisive commitment and the efforts of the people of the Ukraine. All this makes the Ukraine an indispensable partner of the Atlantic Alliance and a stabilizing presence in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like, it's a pleasure for me to give the floor to President Kuchma. President.
Esteemed Secretary General, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great honor for me to speak from this rostrum, and first of all, I would like to thank the leaders of Spain and of its beautiful capital for the businesslike and at the same time warm atmosphere that surrounds our work. Madrid 97 will undoubtedly go down into history as a city where dividing line left by the Cold War in the very center of Europe is eliminated. Yesterday, a decision was made to invite to the membership in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization the Polish Republic, Hungary and the Czech Republic, democratic countries, close neighbors and partners of Ukraine. The day of today is of a particular significance too. Right after the ceremony, the Euro-Atlantic Cooperation Council session will start. This new form of deepening cooperation will enable us all to work closer together in the political field and will provide for the new approach to the realization of the Partnership for Peace program. In a few minutes, the Charter of Special Cooperation between Ukraine and NATO is to be signed. This historic document is going to be another convincing evidence that on the European continent, the new security architecture based on openness and partnership is being shaped. In the conclusion of the Charter, the deep internal transformation of the North Atlantic Alliance is reflected, as well as the democratic course of Ukraine and its real gains in the integration into the European and Euro-Atlantic structures. I'm convinced that these processes will go on and go on in parallel. Large by the European dimensions, the state of Ukraine feels to be an integral part of the Central, Eastern and Southern Europe and is ready to take part in the providing peace and stability in these regions and in the continent in general. The formation of favorable international environment gives us an opportunity to focus on resolving the topical internal problems, first of all, to continue profound transformation in our economy and further democratization of our society. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, irrespective of the fact that during the preparation of the Charter, not all wishes of Ukraine were taken into account, we have all grounds to be happy with the results. At the end of the day, we do not consider it final, but rather a transitional one. We have a lot of common work to be done in the future. I would like to thank you, esteemed Secretary General, and the leaders of the Alliance member states for having supported the idea of establishing the special partnership between Ukraine and NATO and its finalizing in the Charter. Political will and sense demonstrated by all the participants in the preparation of the Charter allow us to affirm the following. Europe has changed, and it is only through joint efforts that security in the continent can be guaranteed, since now Ukraine and NATO are going to work together to that end. In the context of the radical changes in the European House, I cannot but mention such an important event in the development of the international security as the conclusion of the founding act NATO-Russia. We welcome the relations of cooperation and understanding set up between Russia and NATO, and we think that gradual and open development of this relationship is going to be speeded up. I would like to emphasize in particular that the integrity and comprehensiveness of European security for Ukraine are not among the principles that could be only declared. From the point of view of our country's national security, they have real political dimensions. Ukrainian nation's history of many centuries, a lot of pages of which have recently been written with blood and human tragedies, is re-entering the route to stability and civilization. The changes which have taken place in the relations between NATO and other countries are the accomplishments preventing from the repetition of past divisions of the continent. All this, together with the effective peacekeeping activity of NATO in former Yugoslavia, the stabilizing role of the alliance in Central, Eastern and Southeastern part of Europe, has proved that the level of security has not decreased as a result of the enlargement of NATO. On the contrary, the relations between the candidates and their neighbors have been normalized. And what now, after Madrid? There are all grounds to hope that the key principles in European security will be a higher transparency, the development, cooperation and security, and common goals. That's why the doors of the European and transatlantic institutions should remain open to all the countries which would like to join them and meet corresponding criteria. we shall be able to respond to the challenges of the 21st century with dignity, on condition that every state assumes responsibility for its own contribution to the international security. Ukraine has made her choice and is ready, together with the NATO member countries and the partners of the alliance, to take an active part in the construction of the secure future for Europe and thus for the whole world. Thank you for your attention.
Distinguished Presidents, Honourable Ministers, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Today will rank as a memorable day in the relations between NATO and Ukraine, because it is today that a new era is beginning in the relations between NATO and the Ukraine. Therefore, a truly memorable day indeed. The signing of this charter today is the visible symbol of a new Europe, not a Europe of the past, not a Europe of division, not a Europe of confrontation between East and West, but on the contrary, the Europe of the future, a united Europe, a Europe where East and West are partners. Alliance is working for peace, a durable peace based on friendship, a friendship which stems from close and numerous contacts at all levels between the Allies, Ukraine, and beyond with all our partners.
Ladies and gentlemen, in May, the Alliance opened a NATO documentation center in Kiev, the first of this kind in any partner country. Its purpose is a simple but essential one: to make information available on the Alliance, on Ukraine, and to the Ukrainian people. It is open to anyone to walk in, to ask questions, to get information. There is a huge interest in the Alliance in Ukraine. The more we respond to that interest, the more we discover that misconceptions and misunderstandings are tumbling down. There is instead a growing understanding of our common interests and our common heritage. We too have learned, and we have to do it, about our partners with an open mind. Our mutual openness strengthens our ability and strengthens our commitment to work together. The Alliance and Ukraine are now ready to take the process to a significant step forward. Together, our aim is to make a real, substantive contribution to cooperative security in the Euro-Atlantic area. The NATO-Ukraine Charter now needs to be implemented speedily and implemented to the fullest. The partnership will grow by making the greatest possible use of the new mechanism that it provides. Finally, let me just say a warm thank you to all of those who made today's signature possible. The result of your many hours of hard work was well worth the effort. Thank you very much. May I ask you to take the floor, the President of the United States?
Secretary General, fellow leaders, ladies and gentlemen. From the four quarters of our alliance, we have come to Madrid to build a new Europe, where old divides are bridged by new ties of friendship and cooperation, where we recognize no spheres of influence, but instead the influence of shared ideals. Today, we take another step toward that new Europe with the signing of this charter between a new NATO and a democratic Ukraine. From the moment we declared this goal last fall, all have worked hard toward this day. I thank President Kuchma for his vision and courage in leading his great nation down the path of reform. I also thank Secretary General Solana for his efforts on behalf of our alliance. This charter launches a closer relationship between NATO and Ukraine that will benefit both. It lays a foundation for consultation and cooperation that welcomes Ukraine as our partner in building an undivided Europe. Over the last 2 months, Ukraine's bold steps have made this continent more stable and more secure through its treaty of friendship and cooperation with Russia, its border agreement with Romania, its declaration of reconciliation with Poland. Now, an open dialogue and joint activities with NATO will help Ukraine solidify reform and strengthen stability throughout Europe. This charter reflects and reinforces the way this continent has changed. Ukraine has emerged from a century of struggle to pursue the highest standards of dignity and freedom. It is tackling tough economic reform. It has been a leader in reducing the nuclear danger. It has embarked on a course of peaceful integration with the community of democracies. NATO also has evolved to meet these new times with new missions, new members, a stronger partnership for peace, and now new partners with Russia and, of course, today with Ukraine. Today, Europe's security is not a matter of competition, but of cooperation on behalf of common goals. It is natural for Ukraine to reach out to NATO and for NATO to do the same, helping to secure Ukraine firmly in the heart of a new, undivided, democratic Europe. May the charter we sign today be just the opening page in a long history of unity, partnership, and peace that NATO and Ukraine will write together. Thank you.
The President of the Republic of Turkey.
Mr. Secretary General, President Kuchma, distinguished heads of state and government, I would like to congratulate President Kuchma as well as all present here today for the successful conclusion of the Charter on a distinctive NATO-Ukraine partnership. NATO's external adaptation would have not been complete if the Ukrainian dimension were missing. The fundamental changes we have witnessed in the security environment in Europe have inseparably linked the security of every state to that of others. Free, independent, and democratic Ukraine, with her great potential, is a key player in the whole Eurasian security architecture. NATO and Ukraine are committed to the fundamental principle that the security of all states in the OSCE area is indivisible. NATO and Ukraine also share the same conviction that no state can regard any part of the OSCE area as its sphere of influence. Based on these shared values and commitments, The Charter will be an essential element of our security environment, furthering and enhancing peace and stability and security for all. For Turkey, the NATO-Ukraine Charter is especially important, as it involves an alliance to which we are a devoted member and an important neighbor of ours, with which we enjoy excellent relations in every field. Turkey is ready to contribute fully to the realization of the goals of this distinctive partnership through fruitful cooperation. We believe that this Charter is a living document. We are also confident that new and more comprehensive areas of consultation and cooperation will be included in due course. Mr. Chairman, I am confident that NATO and Ukraine, as partners in peace and stability, will jointly contribute to the realization of a more secure environment. Imagination, cooperation, and solidarity will be the key concepts in the new era we are entering. We should spare no effort to stand up to the challenges and achieve our common goal. Thank you.
Le Président de la République.
The President of the French and this country, relationship based on confidence and transparency. This Charter, then, constitutes one of the main building blocks of the new European security architecture. It contributes at the same time to stability on our continent as a whole. The Ukraine, with its ancient culture, its population, its economic potential, its geographic situation in the world. Ukraine, I was saying, holds a fundamental site in the building of security. In signing today's Charter, we extend our hand to a new partner who has shown its sense of responsibility and its commitment to the service of peace. The accession of Ukraine to the Non-Proliferation Treaty as a non-nuclear state shows this commitment. Last month, indeed, the signing of the Good Neighbourhood Treaty between Romania and Ukraine and the Treaty of Friendship between Ukraine and Russia illustrate the will which Ukraine shares and the ability of the leaders of the three countries concerned to solve problems of a very delicate nature and to establish deep and peaceful cooperation between them. I'd like, in fact, to underline the courageous commitment of Ukraine in Bosnia and the exemplary cooperation she has shown with France and with all the countries present on the ground. The partnership which we are founding today is then a further encouragement aimed at the development of a stable and prosperous Ukraine committed with courage toward political and economic reforms. I would like to pay tribute to President Leonid Kuchma and Mr. Javier Solana, who have led these negotiations over the months and have made this signing today possible. Thank you very much.
The Federal Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany.
Mr. Secretary General, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the signing of the Charter on a partnership between NATO and Ukraine is a source of great pleasure to us all and also to us Germans. Following the founding act on cooperation between NATO and Russia, the establishment of the Euro-Atlantic Partnership Council, and NATO's opening to new members, this is yet another important and basic step on the road to a lasting peaceful order in Europe. It brings Ukraine closer to the Euro-Atlantic institutions, and we are grateful for this. At the same time, we are emphasizing our support for the reform course embarked upon by an independent and sovereign Ukraine. This occasion today illustrates the historic transformation we have witnessed in recent years. Not very long ago, two heavily armed military alliances confronted one another in Europe. Now, and this is indeed and truly a great and historic moment, confrontation is being superseded by ever closer cooperation. Cooperation between NATO and Ukraine has already been very fruitful. Take, for instance, their interaction within the framework of the North Atlantic Cooperation Council, the Partnership for Peace, and last but not least, and let me pay a special tribute to this, their joint operations in Bosnia. By renouncing its nuclear weapons, Ukraine has, in addition, already rendered a major contribution to stability in Europe. This charter, ladies and gentlemen, places cooperation on a broader basis. Through its partnership with NATO, Ukraine can now play a bigger role in helping to create a security architecture for the 21st century. I congratulate President Kuchma and Secretary General Solana on the good result, and I must say I would like to commend you on the very great efforts that you put into this endeavor, very great endeavor. It represents a great success for the cause of peace in Europe. Let us together seize the opportunity offered by this charter.
Mr. Secretary General, NATO has developed a policy of consolidating its relations with all European states. The agreement between NATO and the Ukraine is based on this policy and at the same time recognizes the importance of a country which has contributed greatly towards security in the continent. The agreement with the Ukraine strengthens its cooperation with NATO. As a party to this agreement, NATO underlines its support for Ukraine's independence and sovereignty and acknowledges that country's important role in future security arrangements in the continent. This agreement is therefore a significant step in the direction of a new Europe towards a continent which will live in a security and peace for the foreseeable future. For this reason, I welcome the agreement on Iceland's behalf. Thank you.
The Prime Minister of Belgium. Mr. Secretary General, President Kuchma, dear colleagues. The distinctive charter between NATO and Ukraine is a charter which is an important step in the development of the European security and defense identity and is an important achievement given the hard work that has been put into this project on all sides. And I would like to pay tribute to all those who have contributed to the success of this project. Such success would not have been possible without the courage and imagination and political vision of the Ukrainian president and his colleagues who have seized the opportunity, which is a truly historic one, in order to give to the geographic position of Ukraine and the political weight of Ukraine the important role which is hers in the defense of Europe. And the good neighborly relations which Ukraine has developed with other nations of the region, its renunciation to nuclear weapons, its participation in the Non-Proliferation Pact, and its participation in all peaceful operations, including, of course, its important role in the former Yugoslavia. In signing this charter on the distinctive relationship between NATO and Ukraine, we solemnly recognize and pay tribute to the important role that Ukraine will play in the security of our continent, and we are delighted that we shall now have a more structured basis for the dialogue, which we hope will be fruitful and expect will be positive in developing this identity to which I have referred. And we hope that our cooperation will take shape in many different fields so that the maximum potential of the partnership between the alliance and Ukraine can come to fruition. Thank you.
Secretary General, President Kuchma, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege for our generation to sign, not only sign papers, but to realize, imagine in our generation, all the pacts we have signed and confirmed in so short time. A few weeks ago, we signed in Paris the founding act for our cooperation and partnership with Russia. Yesterday, we agreed upon the enlargement of NATO, and today, President Kuchma, it is so great a joy and honor for us to sign a new partnership with your beautiful country and with you, President. This charter is a distinctive partnership between NATO and Ukraine. First and foremost, the Chancellor stressed that NATO will continue to support Ukrainian sovereignty, independence, and democratic development. The NATO-Ukraine Charter is another important part of building the whole new European house on peaceful fundament and yet irreversible fundament. What we have signed here today will facilitate a further development of the already existing and rewarding cooperation between NATO and Ukraine. President Kuchma, may I personally and on behalf of my country and colleagues say thank you to you for all what you have done for your country and to join us. Thank you for your cooperation and welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Secretary General, President Kuchma, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Canada and of the more than 1 million Canadians of Ukrainian origin, I am delighted to be here today for the formal signing of the NATO-Ukraine Charter. Our role as a founding member of the Alliance and our special ties to Ukraine have given us a deep insight into the issues at stake. From the beginning, Canada has worked hard to ensure that the NATO-Ukraine relationship is based on a solid recognition of the importance to us all of the independence and security of Ukraine. In fact, Canada was the first country to formally recognize Ukrainian independence. We directed that our embassy in Kiev, in Ukraine, serve as the contact mission for the alliance. We made a Canadian available to direct the NATO Information Office there.
The charter which we are signing today will be beneficial both to NATO and to Ukraine. The alliance now can count on a strong mechanism for consultation and negotiation when talking to the second largest state in Europe outside NATO. And Ukraine will strengthen the most important security organization in the Euro-Atlantic area. Last year, Mr. Secretary General, you described Ukraine as being the cornerstone of the new emerging order in security structures in Europe. With the signing of today's charter, NATO and Ukraine have ensured that this cornerstone will be solidly anchored. Thank you, and congratulations, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General. Thank you.
Prime Minister of the Netherlands.
Mr. Secretary General, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, after the historic founding act with Russia only a few weeks ago, and the agreement to establish the Euro-Atlantic Partnership Council and yesterday's decisions on enlargement of the alliance, this is a fourth indispensable element in order to strengthen the security architecture of the next century. The politically binding charter we signed today is not only a success for both NATO and Ukraine, it's also a necessity, pure and simple. I want to congratulate the Secretary General and Minister Udovenko for their achievements. And I want to pay tribute to President Kuchma for his leadership, for his personal contribution to modernize his country and to bring prosperity and perspective to his people, and for his constructive role in cooperating between the Ukraine and the alliance. Ukraine has already become a genuine contributor to European security, as witnessed not only the recent agreements it concluded with its Russian and Romanian neighbors, but also its concrete efforts to contribute in restoring peace to Bosnia. The Netherlands, committed as we are to non-proliferation, commends the Ukraine's position as a non-nuclear state, which is also stated in the Charter. The Charter emphasizes the special importance NATO attaches to Ukraine as a democratic and independent state. The task which lies ahead of both Ukraine and the allies is to make the institution we have created work. Each of us should exploit to the maximum the opportunities afforded by the Charter in the field of both political dialogue and practical military cooperation like peacekeeping exercises. Cooperation of this kind will be an asset in itself, and it will have a beneficial effect on security and stability in the whole of Europe in a prosperous, peaceful and undivided Europe. Thank you.
Le Premier ministre du Grand-Duché.
The Prime Minister of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. Mr. Secretary General, distinguished presidents, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, the Charter which we have signed today and which we're going to implement without delay is a visible symbol of the meaning of partnership, and especially in our relations with Ukraine and the importance of Ukraine in the stability of our continent. The close cooperation which has been established between Ukraine and the alliance is to be seen in the broader framework of a new Europe at peace with itself. The mechanism of consultation instituted by the Charter and the mechanisms of cooperation which have been established take into account the specific identity of Ukraine and her contribution to security in Europe. A contribution to peace, but also an active contribution to all propitious circumstances which are necessarily the subject of cooperation when our friends come together in defending the peace. And I would like to pay tribute especially to President Kuchma for his personal contribution to this achievement, and also to our Secretary General for all the hard work he's put into this project bearing fruit. The Alliance is proud to welcome a sovereign democratic Ukraine into this special and distinctive partnership. And the Luxembourg government will strive to make even more visible the new qualities of our relationship between Ukraine and the rest of Europe. Thank you very much.
The Prime Minister of Portugal.
President Kuchma, Secretary General, dear colleagues, by signing here the charter between NATO and Ukraine, approved at the Sintra meeting, we are creating a strong and close partnership. This charter is yet another important step in the global architecture of the Euro-Atlantic security we have gradually been building. As I said in reference to the founding act we signed with the Russian Federation, this charter is an essential instrument in creating a single area of collective security joining all European nations, Central Asia and North America. A ring of security from Bering to Bering, forming a solid basis for peace and cooperation among all our peoples, and at the same time, a stabilizing factor for worldwide peace and security. The European culture has evolved over many centuries in a multitude of expressions. This is one of the elements of its richness. All these expressions, however, spring from a common root made up of values we all share. Values that flow from the recognition of human dignity, values of freedom and solidarity, of open societies that recognize the role of reason and the rule of law. Throughout our history, many alliances and coalitions have been formed and dissolved according to the needs of the moment. The Atlantic Alliance, however, was formed for the defense of those fundamental and enduring values. Therefore, it succeeded, not by winning battles, but by preserving peace, by making it possible to transform adversaries into partners, not by vanquishing, but by convincing. Yesterday's adversaries have become today's partners. They can become tomorrow's allies. It is with this perspective in mind that I salute the people of Ukraine, represented here by President Kuchma. Mr. President, we all recognize and admire your vision and your courage. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister of Greece.
Mr. Chairman, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Greece has always stressed the great importance that we attribute to strengthening our relations with a democratic Ukraine. We believe that Ukraine has an important role to play in current and future European affairs. Greece has highly appreciated the Ukrainian stance regarding nuclear disarmament and welcomes its support to fully integrate into European structures and organizations. We believe that signing today the Charter on a distinctive partnership between NATO and Ukraine marks the beginning of an evolutionary and dynamic process which will be enriched and strengthened through experience gained in the course of its implementation. This Charter builds on the solid ground of our common effort to enhance peace and stability, to promote security and democracy to benefit all. It also constitutes another significant step among all the important decisions that we have recently taken in order to meet the aspirations of all the democratic peoples of Europe who are seeking peace and progress. Based on commonly shared values, on fundamental principles such as national independence, territorial integrity, defense of democracy and the rule of law, we are confident that we will move forward in a constructive spirit in order to build a better future for all. Thank you.
The Prime Minister of the Republic of Italy.
Mr. Secretary General, President Kuchma, the decision adopted at Sintra and Madrid by allies and partners represent an historic turning point in the destiny of Europe. They create security institutions and processes in which each nation can participate and feel safeguarded and integrated. They outline a new way of being European. They outline a new European spirit, a spirit of harmony and sharing. The turning point would not be complete without the special partnership between Ukraine and the Alliance. Ukraine is, in fact, a great country, a fundamental actor in Europe. It has been actively contributing to the strengthening of European security by adopting brave decisions, such as the renunciation of nuclear weapons, the signing of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and finally, but not least, the ratification of the so-called flank agreement in the framework of CFE Treaty. Italy has from the outset been convinced of the need to establish a special dialogue between NATO and Ukraine. We are aware of the great contribution that a stable, sovereign and independent Ukraine can provide to the overall European security architecture. It was therefore with enthusiasm and an open mind that we signed the NATO-Ukraine agreement. The Alliance and Ukraine will decide together in the committee set up by the Charter specifically for that purpose, how to take full advantage of all the possibilities offered by today's agreement. Throughout history, Ukraine and the countries of the Alliance have followed very different paths. Finally, these paths have crossed. It is our common desire, and it will be our common task to see that they never again will separate. Thank you.
Prime Minister from Norway.
President Kuchma, Presidents, Prime Ministers, Mr. Secretary General, in the 5 years since her independence, Ukraine has assumed her natural place in the European community of nations. She plays a vital role in contributing to peace and stability in Central and Eastern Europe. A sovereign, prosperous and democratic Ukraine is a key factor in ensuring stability in Europe. I would like to express my appreciation for Ukraine's contribution to the successful IFOR and SFOR peacekeeping operations in Bosnia. We also commend Ukraine's landmark decision to renounce nuclear weapons and to accede to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty as a non-nuclear weapon state. Ukraine is now using its advanced missile technology for peaceful purposes. I can refer to a fresh example through the joint American, Russian, Ukrainian, Norwegian project called Sea Launch. Next year, this unique project will orbit commercial satellites from ocean-going platforms. I see this pioneering project as a symbol of the new times, where former adversaries join forces, combine knowledge and resources in building a better future for us all. Mr. Secretary General, on our road from the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 till the meeting in Paris some weeks ago, the great event yesterday, and the signing here today, we have proved that democracy means security. On behalf of Norway, I strongly welcome this charter with the Ukraine.
The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Mr. Secretary General, today's signature of the NATO-Ukraine Charter puts in place another foundation stone of a new, secure and undivided Europe. I welcome unreservedly its recognition of the importance of Ukraine's independence and sovereignty to European security. The people of Ukraine have suffered more than most from war in Europe. This charter will help to ensure that this never happens again. It is also another great step forward in Ukraine's re-entry to the European mainstream, where it belongs. Ukraine may be young as a country, but it is old as a part of the cultural and political life of Europe. Kiev has been a great European city for at least 1,000 years. Ukraine's agreement with Russia and the visit to Kiev by President Yeltsin and the agreement with Romania are giant steps towards establishing a solid foundation for Ukraine's relations with its neighbors, and I warmly welcome this progress. Ukraine, of course, faces serious challenges, notably getting economic reform fully rooted and managing the closure of Chernobyl. But we will work with Ukraine to tackle these issues. In NATO through this charter, and in the EU, OSCE, and the international financial institutions. We see Ukraine as one of the keys to peace and prosperity across Europe, and a priority partner for Britain. We will continue to help Ukraine's economic and political development, in particular through the Know-How Fund. This autumn's planned trilateral military exercise involving Britain, Poland, and Ukraine shows the commitment to security cooperation. Ukraine itself has some hard decisions to take on the path to economic success and political stability. And I want to pay tribute to President Kuchma's great personal courage in pursuing these goals. So, Mr. Chairman, I salute today's charter. History will decide its importance, not by the words that are in it, but by what we now do with it.